Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Welcome, everyone, to round number 5 of the Extreme Motorsports Ricmotech Sports Car Series presented by Performa Texas Elite Graphics. Tonight, we find ourselves in Lexington, Ohio, and the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Opened in 1962, Mid-Ohio, like many of the tracks of its era, was built right into the land. And according to its designer, Les Griebling, it was designed with a singular goal, and that was to be difficult. From the keyhole to madness, from Thunder Valley to the carousel, it's over 2 miles of camber and elevation changes, which constantly challenges the driver. And after watching tonight's races, I think you'll agree that Mr. Griebling's goal was definitely accomplished. I'm Greg Ginsburg, along with Larry McLeod in the commentary booth. And of course, we've got Dennis Branch and Jonathan Grabowski in the virtual production truck, where they'll be queuing up all the best views of tonight's 75-minute GT4 and TCR race from the Buckeye State. So, Larry, after a holiday hiatus, the Sports Car Series is back, and Mid-Ohio is one heck of a challenging course to knock the rust off at.
It definitely is. So I think we're going to have some interesting racing tonight, as we always do within our class, mixed class racing. And I think tonight won't be any exception to that. And Mid-Ohio is very different from some of the other tracks we've run. So I think this will present that kind of a challenge that you got to go out there and master this place. It's not everyone's favorite, but it is some people's favorite. So we'll see who rises to the top here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's tight, it's twisty. It was actually widened back in 1990 when they did a bit of an update. That's also when they created the pro course, basically giving you that straightaway, cutting off the chicane down between turn 1 and the keyhole. But it is still so difficult to pass here. Just the way you've got all of these blind corners, you rise up over madness, you're constantly switching from left to right, going uphill, going downhill, and it is certainly going to be a challenge. But let's do this, Larry, maybe a little bit early in the broadcast. Let's turn things over to Kevin Ford. He's going to give us tonight's track guide of 2.4 mile, in this case, actually 2.25 mile, 2.25 mile, 13 turn Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
Welcome, everyone, to Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, located here in beautiful Lexington, Ohio. Great to have you with us as we provide you your track guide today around this incredible road course, 2.25 miles around this place. And let me tell you, it is an exciting one. Let's get started here as we head up the front straightaway. You'll notice our pit area to the left as we come across the stripe and start setting up our entry for turn 1. We're going to drop down into third gear here and let that car rotate, get right back to the bottom, come back to throttle to get a nice launch off that track out of the exit and head up the hill here to what's known as the keyhole. Turn 2, overtaking opportunities here at entry. This corner just falls away from you, and then you want to come right back to bottom, get that nice good launch up onto the backstretch here at Mid-Ohio. Very fast section of the track, probably the fastest section. And of course, overtaking opportunities here will definitely take place coming down into what's known as turn 4 and China Beach. Big heavy sand area off the left of this corner right there for drivers that missed that brake zone. Now we're up into madness. This is a blind entry in one of the most famous corners here at Mid-Ohio. Very tricky one. Back to the right through 6 here. And now we're going to head up into the S's underneath the Honda Bridge. Over the crest, down into another blind entry here, or blind exit rather, as we come up over the hill into Thunder Valley. Careful coming to throttle there. And of course, into the final section here, one of my favorite parts of the track. Back to the left, come back to throttle, up into a blind entry here, into the final carousel. Catch this right back to throttle, up into third gear and out of the exit of the final corner and across the stripe. There you go. There's your track guide for beautiful Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
And thank you so much to Kevin Ford for tonight's track guide of 2.25 mile, 13 turn for the pro course. Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, as opposed to running the slightly longer 2.4 mile 15 turn, what is now referred to as the club course at Mid-Ohio, that incorporates that chicane coming down out of turn 1 and heading up towards the keyhole. So, Larry, as Kevin as Kevin showed there, a lot of, as we've said, lots of twists, lots of turns, lots of elevation changes, and it gets really tight when you come through turn 4, and turn 4 coming into that area known as China Beach with that big giant gravel trap off the driver's left, which is one of the key passing zones here at Mid Ohio. You'll find that as drivers try to come up the hill and they have that blind turn in at the top of Madness, usually a lot of mayhem happens up there.
It really does. It's because you come off at the end of that straightaway, and it's typically side by side because it is one of the better places to get up alongside somebody. And you end up side by side all the way through it, through 4 into 5, and it creates mayhem and madness, as the name definitely is appropriately for. And if you're done right, you can actually make it pass into there. The best that I've seen, the most successful ones, are the ones that can hold their line on the outside of 4, putting them on the inside of that turn 5 into madness. And that typically is enough to get just an advantage and take that. But this place is tough to pass, and that one limited spot seems to be it. You will find a few others may try things like going into Keyhole and some others, but Madness, lots of side-by-side promoted to there. And I think lap 1 especially is going to be interesting as everyone's vying for the first lap position.
That's right, and we'll talk about in just a moment one driver who I'm sure is hoping for a much better lap 1 tonight than he had, I guess now 3 weeks ago at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. But let's quickly here, as we have our drivers now out on track for qualifying, and we give our drivers 15 minutes in order to set fast time and set the grid for tonight's 75-minute race. It is what is known as a lone qualifying in iRacing parlance, that the drivers feel as though they have the track all to themselves, and they will have 4 flying laps here at Mid Ohio in order to set their fastest time and hopefully get a great position on the grid for tonight's race. And we do have 2 different types of cars and 3 different classes running this evening. In the GT4 cars, we've got both our Pro and our AM classes. And when we throw up the timing pylon on the left-hand side of the screen here in just a few moments, what you will see is the drivers separated out by different colors. And the drivers that have red by their positions correspond to the cars that have the red number boards and the red mirrors, like we're looking at Travis Schwenke right now. Those are our Pro Class drivers. The drivers with the green mirrors, with the green number boards, and also will have their position in green on that timing pylon when it comes up, much like Russ Ruddick right there in the number 95 BMW. They will be your AM category drivers. And then finally, the front-wheel drive cars, the TCR cars, when they are out there, and we have a number of different types of TCR cars. We've got the Hyundai Elantras, like we have there with Andre Saunders. We've got the Civic Type Rs, the D2D E-Racing is running. We've even, we'll have to see if any of the Lead Car Racing Hyundai Velocitors come out, or any of the Audi RS4s. But those cars, you will see, they've got the blue mirrors, they've got the blue number boards and blue windshield banners as well. And you can see there on the timing pylon on your screen now, as we have a couple of drivers that have put times down in the books. They'll have blue next to their for their positions on that timing pylon. So, Larry, I just said that we want I'm sure one of our drivers is hoping for a little bit better first lap than he had a couple of weeks ago at Laguna Seca. And let's take a look at that. We're going to very quickly take a look back at our race, round number 4 a couple of weeks ago, and we'll give you the current point standings in all 3 championships. Taking the win in GT4 Pro at Laguna Seca was Chris Walsh in the ST Racing Esports BMW M4 with Mike Dam, who I do not believe is here. And there's Chris on track. Mike Dam came in second in the Orion Racing BMW M4. I don't believe Mike is here racing with us tonight. No. And then Kevin Ford, who is going to be sitting behind the scenes tonight, stewarding tonight's race rather than driving. He came home with the last step on the podium, finished third, only 1.7 seconds off the win. It was a very close finish. Mike Dam only 18 hundredths of a second back from Chris Walsh, and Kevin Ford, like I said, 1.7 seconds back. But it was all BMW in the top 5. Now, the one driver also driving a BMW that did not have the night that he wanted, that was Cameron Martineau in the ST Racing Esports BMW. And while his teammate took the win, Cameron was your pole sitter at Laguna Seca, and had some contact coming through the Andretti hairpin on lap number 1. Had to go get repairs, finished 5 laps down, finished in 9th position. I'm sure not where he wanted and not what he expected that race to work out like. So let's take a look now after 4 rounds in the season, and we are now incorporating the drops. Each driver is going to get 1 drop over the course of the season. We are incorporating that now into our point standings. Mike Dam, currently your points leader, driving the number 93 Orion Racing BMW. He's got 103 points. You can see there, just 6 points back right now, Cameron Martineau. And, you know, again, if he hadn't taken that 9th place finish, things could look very different in the championship now. But Martineau sitting 6 points back with 97 points. Another 4 points back from there, his teammate Chris Walsh, our winner in round number 4 from ST Racing Esports. Then we've got the 2 D2D E-Racing drivers, Chris Thorman and David Payton. And we should have Payton joining us, Larry, before the race tonight, and he's going to give us his thoughts on the season and maybe some strategies for this evening. Let's move over quickly to the GT4 AM category, where we only had 3 drivers take the green at Laguna Seca, and Steve Daniel in his SKKJ Racing Porsche Cayman took the win. Russ Ruddock finishing 2nd in his Flying Tortoise Motorsports BMW M4, and then driving the brand new Mercedes AMG GT4 for 046 Racing, John Casey finished in 3rd. And if we take a look at the championship point standings now, after 4 rounds, Steve Daniel is your leader. He has a 2-point advantage over Russ Ruddock, the SKKJ Racing Porsche Cayman, with 76 points. Russ Ruddock for Flying Tortoise Motorsports, 74 points. And then Bobby Childs, who did not race at Laguna Seca in the D2D E-Racing Mercedes AMG GT4, he is only 3 points back from there in 3rd. Then we've got John Casey and Greg Mack rounding out your top 5.
I don't see Bobby Childs here tonight either, so it's a little bit of an open opportunity for some others to maybe move up those standings.
That's right. And so we'll see here. We have, I believe, Ruddock Daniel and John Casey running, and I believe Robert Brist is rejoining us here this evening as well in the AM category. So we'll see how things play out in that slightly smaller field tonight. So let's now jump over to TCR, where Austin Knight got his very first win in the sports car series, driving the Lead Paul Racing Hyundai Velociter. Margin of victory 5 seconds over Andre Saunders and the Mohawk Racing Hyundai Elantra. I should mention that Andre was the fastest driver in testing this week here at Mid-Ohio, so looking very strong for tonight's race. And we had Eric Violet in the D2D E-Racing machine. That is one of our both of our D2D E-Racing drivers, both Eric Violet and Brandon Whitworth, driving Honda Civic Type Rs. Violet finishing in 3rd, and then only 3 seconds back from there, just off the podium, his teammate Brandon Whitworth finished 4th, with Brad Husty in the Husty Racing machine finishing in 5th position at Laguna Seca. And so let's take a look at the point standings now in TCR. Brandon Whitworth and Eric Violet, the 2 D2D E-Racing drivers, they are sitting atop the championship, only 2 points separating those 2 drivers, with Andre Saunders currently sitting just 2 points back from there in 3rd. Austin Knight, our winner from the last round, he has now moved up into 4th position in the championship in his Hyundai Velociter. And then we've got the Elantra of Brad Husty in that Husty Racing number 37 machine. He is sitting 6 points down from Knight, 22 points currently out of the championship. But frankly, Larry, I think it's still certainly up for grabs in that TCR championship, especially since we're only now 4 rounds in.
Yeah, it is, and I think keep our eyes on Kevin Carlisle tonight. This is only his 2nd race. He'll be participating this season. He got a podium a couple of events back. We were at Barber, so he can certainly mix it up with the front of the field here maybe play spoiler for some of these guys, thinking that they have a shot to kind of stake their claim to a championship. So that'll be a fun one. Interesting how he'll see how much of a part he has to play in this.
All right, well, Larry, tell you what, we've got now sitting in the green room, David Payton, driver of the number 64 D2D iRacing Aston Martin Vantage. Why don't we bring him in and get his feelings on tonight's race and the season as a whole?
All right, David Payton has joined us, and David, looks like you may have gotten your qualifying laps in. How you feeling about tonight's race?
A little unsure. I'm not a big. Well, I love the track, but I'm not very good here, so it's a struggle. I feel like I'm fighting the car the whole time I'm going around.
Yeah, this is a tough place, and this class just keeps getting tougher. But I've noticed that this whole season, it seems you and your teammate, Thorman, end up being kind of next to each other at just about every race. Are you guys going to try and put some separation there, or are you just going to gauge along with Chris and see how this goes?
Yeah. Chris is my biggest competition, I think, this season, and him and I are going backwards and forwards. We went into the last race at Laguna Seca, tied in points. He finished that race, I think, 2 spots behind me, but ended up in front of me because he's killing me in bonus points. He's really good at getting the bonus points, so I've got to try and beat him tonight, or at least stay close to him so he doesn't run away with the points. He's been really fast this season. He's getting faster. He used to finish races behind me, and now he's finishing races in front of me, so good on him. Really proud of him.
That is good for him. It's good for the team, but sounds like the challenge is there in front of you to try and step it up and keep up the pace with him. You got much practice in here at Mid-Ohio this week?
Yeah, I managed to get some practice in on Sunday, and Chris and I worked quite a bit on the car. We always do that. We help each other with the setups and try and make a decision before the race as to which one we're going to use. So yeah, we put quite a bit of time in on the car.
As you guys are developing the car, are you looking at how the tires wear to see does that help you in kind of these longer form races, or are you strictly just going to go for fastest lap, flat out performance?
We spend a lot of time making sure that we're not going to wear the tires down. So we might start the race not with the fastest setup, but hopefully in the long run it keeps us up front. So yeah, we take a lot of care in looking after the tires. Chris is very good at looking after the tires during the long run, so which is not good for me.
Well, yeah, it's kind of a good and a bad thing. Your chief rival setup because you're on the same one, but then again, when he's beating you on it, the challenge is there to try and keep up with him.
Yeah.
So I see right now you've qualified about looks like about 6th or 7th right about now. Are you on the start trying to just stay clean, or do you think you can maybe have a chance to pick up a couple of spots?
I think it's a matter of staying clean, running just a consistent race, hopefully. Try and keep the incidents down so I get that bonus point, so Chris doesn't get away on me on that. That's sort of how I'm approaching this race. I'm hoping for a top 5 finish. I'm running top 5 right now in the standings, so if I get a top 5 tonight, I'll be very happy with that.
Yeah, I think in the standings you're about 2 points behind Chris right now coming into tonight's race. Both you guys have been at every event, so they're still going to come down to drops between you. But as you say, he tends to get those bonus points. It's definitely on your goal there to try and do that. But just looking at qualifying so far, I've got Chris 7th on the grid with a 27.88, and I've got you 8th on the grid right next to him there on the same row at 28.01. So you might have to make at least one pass on the opening lap tonight to try and get ahead of that teammate.
I've got a secret. All I got to do is talk to Chris on the radio, and it slows him down. So I get him talking on the radio, and he slows down. So that's my ace in the hole.
That's what Larry does to me, by the way.
Yeah, I just talked to Greg, and it gets him all off his game. All right. Well, David, I give you a lot of good luck tonight. I think you're in one heck of a fight there with your teammate as well as the rest of the whole category here of GT4 Pro. It's a tough group, and I think a top 5 finish is definitely well within reach, but it's going to take some pretty good long run, good quality driving here tonight to get there.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys.
All right. Thanks, David, and good luck, and hopefully we'll talk to you in about an hour.
Thank you. All the best.
All right, there you go. That was David Payton, driver of the number 64 D2D E-Racing Aston Martin Vantage. And Larry, as we're winding things down in qualifying here, we'll just check in very quickly here as Robert Hartley is your provisional pole sitter, leading the GT4 Pro field. Cameron Martineau, who is our pole sitter at Laguna Seca, currently your second fastest driver. Travis Schwenke, currently your third fastest for Orion Racing. Should note that in practice this week, Jeff Jacobs, who is not racing, or actually, I take that back. He is, we'll see.
There.
Actually, we got word that actually Jeff is going to be sitting behind the scenes and stewarding tonight's race. He probably will not be on track, but we'll see if that is the case or not. He was your fastest driver in the class during the week in practice. Well, as a matter of fact, he did put in a qualifying time. So there you go. Larry, why don't we run down the starting grid? Why don't you take the GT4s? I'll pick up the TCR cars at the end.
All right, sounds good. On pole tonight, as mentioned from Orion Racing, it's Robert Hartley with a 27.2, just 20 thousandths ahead of the rival there on his outside, Cameron Martineau from SG Racing Sports, second on the grid tonight. Second row on the inside, another Orion driver who probably needs a good finish as much as anybody, Travis Schwenke. He'll be third on the grid tonight. Alongside him, Tony Kernan of Kernan Motorsports on row 2. Row 3 on the inside, Chris Walsh, one of our previous race winners there in SG Racing Esports, lined up alongside Brennan Horan in the D2D E-Racing Skull Sim Gear entry. On row 4, Chris Thorman, the rival to our pre-race interview there from D2D E-Racing. And on his outside, we just talked to him, David Payton, also D2D E-Racing. On row 5, you get the first of our AM category driver, Steve Daniel, SKKJ Racing, alongside Jeff Jacobs, who was quick in practice this week. On to row 6, Russ Ruddock from Flying Tortoise Motorsport. And on the outside, John Casey from 046 Racing. And then on row 7, on the inside there, Robert Brist from RFC Racing.
All right, so let's take a look at the TCR cars and your pole sitter tonight from Mohawk Racing. Andre Saunders driving the number 72 machine with Kevin Carlisle, driver of the number 27 Nerdworks entry right next to him. Both those drivers running in Hyundai Elantras. Then we've got Austin Knight, our last round winner, driving the number 21 Lead Paw Racing Hyundai Velociter. He'll start on the inside of row number 2, starting right next to him in the Honda Civic Type R. Brandon Whitworth representing D2D E-Racing. Then we've got Brandon's teammate, Eric Violet. He is going to be starting on the inside of row number 3, starting 5th tonight with Brad Husty from Husty Racing, driving the Hyundai Elantra. He will start in 6th position, and then rounding out the field in the TGT Racing Hyundai Elantra, Tom Jenkins. All right, so we've got the field underway now on their pace lap. Now, as opposed to most races here in iRacing, our drivers, they will not be going on the green flag on the traditional short straight that they are coming into right now, but they will be taking the green flag on the back straight, on the run out of the keyhole, heading down towards turn 4, what is known as turn 3, where there's the little kink there. We have a live steward, in this case, actually Kevin Ford behind the scenes. He'll be giving the green flag to our racers tonight, and there is a start zone that the green flag may come out anytime between when the drivers hit the very first crossover road on that back straight and the green flag on the flag stand at the top of turn, right by that little kink over by turn number 3. Drivers may not pass the car ahead of them until they get to that start line over by the flag stand, but they can certainly start accelerating prior to that, as our drivers now are coming out of the keyhole, coming down now onto the front straight in GT4 with Robert Hartley leading the field. He's got the inside line in that number 3 Orion Motorsports machine, Cameron Martineau, in the SDE Racing machine on the outside. And the green flag is in the air, and racing's on here from Mid-Ohio as they make the run down the back straight and head down towards turn 4. Hartley still has the inside line, but will Martineau go deep and try to go around the outside and set up for the pass coming up through Madness as they now head up the hill? Our TCR cars now get the green flag as well. And coming down, and we have a car off. I believe it's Chris Walsh who's gone off driver's right on the outside of Madness. He's going to have to rejoin as our TCR cars on the right-hand side of your screen now come down into through turn 4 and up in the Madness. Your TCR leader is Andre Saunders with Kevin Carlisle Austin Knight gets around Brandon Whitworth as they come down the hill and head into the S's.
Yeah, Saunders with a good start there in the TCRs, able to hold off Carlisle and Knight. Everybody pretty much staying in line in the grid original qualifying order so far there in the TCRs. But it was in that GT4. It was that Chris Walsh, one of our favorites here tonight, last round winner, going off, coming out of madness, got caught on the right side and couldn't quite hold it in. He's got a lot of work ahead of him now. Didn't lose the entire field. He's right there at the back of it, though. But he's definitely got some work to do to catch up to the likes of Martineau and Hartley. Martineau now leading Hartley down the opening straights.
There you go, and a much different opening for Cameron Martineau than 3 weeks ago at Laguna Seca, where he was your pole sitter, got taken out going through the first series of corners and had to get a lot of damage repaired, finished 5 laps down, but he now has jumped out to an early lead out on top or over the Orion Racing BMW of Robert Hartley as they come now down onto the back straight out of the keyhole. Sitting in third, Tony Kernan, new livery for the number 84 Kernan Motorsports BMW. Travis Schwenke, the number 16 Orion machine, sitting right back from there. And I think the last car in that group right now is the Mercedes AMG GT4 of Brennan Horan, the number 45 machine. Then a little bit of separation back to Thorman and Peyton and Jeff Jacobs, also all in the Aston Martin Vantages.
Yeah, watching Horan on board here as he's trying to wrestle that AMG. This one of the newer cars released on the platform, and kind of like the GT3 version, but a little more GT4'd up, should I say. A lot slipperier and slidier as you can watch his hands moving to try and keep this thing going together. Probably needs a little bit of warmer tires to really be able to lock in and keep up with this front pack, but he certainly doesn't want to lose them too early in this fight.
Yeah, of course, 3 weeks ago at Laguna Seca, it definitely turned out to be a BMW course, Larry, with the top 5 finishers all driving the BMW M4 GT4s, and it was not until we got to our 5th place finisher who was driving a different chassis there, and I believe have to go back through all my notes, but it was the Aston Martin Vantage of Chris Thorman, who was our first non-BMW racers. We take a look here also in GT4 Pro. Steve Daniel in the number 9 Porsche Cayman jumps out to an early lead on Russ Ruddick in the 95 BMW, and Ruddick is now just given up a position to Chris Walsh, trying to make that recovery in the number 4 BMW and get back up to the rest of the GT4 Pro field. And he now finds himself between our leader and our 2nd place runner in the M category.
Yeah, Russ kind of yielded that spot. Probably could have put up a little bit stronger fight on the corner entry into 4, but I think he knew at that point he was probably going to just put himself in a rough position. The outside of 4 is a really tough line. If you can make it work, it's the great place to be to put you on the inside of 5, but it also puts you awfully close to the infamous China Beach out there. You just don't want to be that close to it. So I think he probably did the right thing there. You know, he's got to take the fight to Steve Daniel and not really to Chris Walsh. So we'll let Walsh on through, continue to fight his way back to the front of the pack as we move over to our TCRs as we're on board with Kevin Carlisle here, trying to put the fight up into Saunders. Saunders not going anywhere. Carlisle's able to hold in tight behind them. They're all lined up as well still with Knight, Whitworth, and Violet right close with them.
Very close, very close. Now, Saunders was our fastest driver in the TCRs all week in practice, and of course managed to extend that out to tonight and was your pole sitter for tonight's race. But now moving to drivers left and going right around Andre Saunders, taking over the lead now is Kevin Carlisle in his Hyundai Elantra. So dropped Saunders, and Saunders appears to be having some issues, maybe some hardware problems, Larry, or did
either that or he got a course cut somewhere that we didn't see. It's possible, perhaps back there, one of the, coming off of the carousel, perhaps is a spot where you could get a course cut. And I wonder if he just had to serve that penalty.
And so Saunders now drops back to 3rd. We also have a driver that has moved all the way back, and was that? Let me see if that's Robert Grist that we saw pull over all the way car. Drivers right. That the entire TCR field just drove by. Yeah, indeed it is. That is the number 51 machine of Brist, who has now fallen behind that entire TCR field. He's got a long way to go to get
Yeah, I
back
get the feeling
up to our
Robert may
GT4
not have,
field.
probably didn't have the practice time in this week, so he's just doing the gentlemanly thing and saying, you know what, guys, I'm not as comfortable out here as you guys are. Let's take your fight on by me, and I'll get my seat time back here. So we appreciate him doing that. But the TCR battle now with Austin Knight just ahead of Saunders. This is going to be interesting as Austin has already flashed his lights a couple times. We'll see him do that a lot tonight there in his little yellow and white Hyundai.
and I don't know if it's to intimidate the drivers ahead or if it's to get our attention, Larry.
It's Austin. I can guarantee it's the latter.
Yeah, most likely the latter. And so Austin did remind us that he has a good amount of experience here on track in the real-life Mid-Ohio sports car course, Formula car racing. Unfortunately, I think his last race here was back in 2013, and he had a pretty bad incident, so maybe some flashbacks for Austin. But he seems to be doing quite well, starting third tonight and currently sitting up in second. But it looks like Saunders, who maybe did have that slowdown, right on the back of the Lead Paw Racing yellow and white Hyundai Veloster.
Yeah, and Saunders is probably kicking himself for taking on that penalty and having to serve it like he did. Gave an opportunity for Carlisle to really jump out. Kind of pulled ahead of even any kind of draftability for Knight and Saunders behind him. Saunders looking like he wants to get the position back that he not only had to give up this position to Carlisle, but gave up a second one to Austin Knight. I think he's kind of regretting that, really wants to make his move. Look at this. You can see him almost pushing Hyundai on Hyundai to try and get him to catch up to Carlisle out in front.
All right, as they come now down out of Thunder Valley and head under, braking down into this very difficult carousel section at Mid-Ohio, and you can see there where Austin Knight pushed a little bit wide, trying to get the car back underneath him, coming through the final corner, coming through turn 13 and back onto the front straight. And yeah, you can just see Saunders kind of chomping at the bit there, trying to find a way by, but it's so narrow
Yeah, this whole course is very difficult. Clearly, it's one of the more challenging ones in the country as a driver. But that carousel in particular, as you're coming off of turn 11, that high-speed kink, and you're plummeting downhill into the carousel, you got to find a place to brake. And all of a sudden, not only does it go away from you forwards, you got to turn in. It goes off camber.
Yes,
it makes it very difficult. But the key, of course, is to get the great exit off of 13, which typically means good late apex, and make that front straight as long as possible. Very difficult to do when you get pushed deep in the carousel, as we saw Austin do there. The whole corner just creates a huge amount of challenge, but the challenge also lies on the person trailing the driver who's struggling, as you just saw right there with Saunders unable to make any moves there because it becomes a one-lane driving line there. There's just no way to make a pass. All you could do is just limit the damage and hope to get on by him as you get down the back straight again. It's just it's time lost as Saunders and Whitworth and Violet are just going to watching Carlisle open up that lead.
All right, so not sure what brought this on, Larry, but we do have Russ Ruddick now in the pit lane, pitting from third in GT4 AM, and he is now back underway. Certainly a lot earlier. Maybe he just did not fill the tank up after qualifying.
Very possible, yes.
And I think that's the case because although our drivers, they're all going to need to take at least one fuel stop here this evening. The pit window quite a bit further out than lap number 7 for our GT4 cars.
Just to let the folks who are watching know, if you don't realize, these are completely open setup cars. You can do anything you want. And in a GT4 car, there's a lot of knobs you can turn. Things like shock settings, your rebound compression. You can do spring rates. You can do sway bar changes, alignment changes. But you can also add and subtract fuel. So qualifying laps, you only have to go out there for 4 laps. Take it down to just a gallon or 2 of fuel, and then when you go to start the race, throw in the full fuel load. Some drivers will even change setups between qualifying and the race, but one of the things you almost always need to change is going to be that fuel load, and you'd like to get that fuel back in there. Apparently, Russ Ruddick didn't do that. Now, look at this. We've got a battle. Saunders able to get by Austin Knight. Knight tried to push him deep into 4, unable to. Saunders now is going to try and buckle down and see if he can catch up to Kevin Carlisle out in front of him and leave the battle to Whitworth to chase and try to get past Austin Knight.
Yeah, and I think as Austin tried to push Saunders down into turn 4 and as close as possible to that big gravel trap there over at China Beach, he probably sensed that Eric Violet was about ready to take advantage of it as Knight had gone so deep as well. The rear end really stepped out on him. And for a moment there, I thought Whitworth was going to try to shove the car underneath to the apex, held back was a little bit more cautious there. But now the two D2D E-Racing Civic Type R's right on the back of that Lead Paw Racing Velociter as Saunders now, and you can see what the pace difference is just in the course of about a half a lap. That Saunders now has opened up about a 4-car length advantage over Knight's Velociter.
Yeah, we'll see if the if Saunders can catch up to the same make vehicle there, Kevin Carlisle. See if Hyundai can kind of play out the front here. It's always interesting now that TCR has a multitude of different platforms. The Civic, the Type R Civic, of course, that the D2D E-Racing guys and Whitworth and Violet are driving. We've talked to Eric. He's mentioned how sometimes that car isn't as fast necessarily as the Hyundais. We'll see if he's able to make a move, if he or Brandon are able to make a move to get past the Velociter of Knight, and if they're able to kind of keep pace with Carlisle and Saunders. I'd be interested tonight on this kind of a really tight and twisty track. Perhaps the Civic can close some of that gap that it seemed to the Hyundais.
All right, let's jump back a little bit further in the field. We're looking right now at David Payton, driver of the number 64 D2D E-Racing Aston Martin.
No.
Oh, and look at this, going around the number 3
That's
machine of Robert Hartley, as he now falls back he was sitting up in 2nd position. He's now going to fall all the way back into 9th overall.
Wow. I can only imagine that this is one of those catch a little too much curb at the apex of one, perhaps catch a little grass, the exit of one, you end up drivers left down the next straight. I'm sure the boys will cue us up replay once they've got one ready, but that's tough break there for Rob Hartley, as he was, if you say, comes into this race strong in the points, needed another good finish here, but unfortunately a spin there cost him about 8 positions and dropped him all the way back almost to 10th.
Yeah, and you run into, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see that replay. There is that little bit of curbing that separates the pit exit from turn 1. And, you usually want to get the edges of your tires right up to the edge of it. But if you pop over the top and ride the top in a lot of cases, it's going to send the car around. And so here we go. I think we've got the replay all queued up. Let's take a look here on the right-hand side of your screen. And there you see it. They have the little rise. Yeah, the rear end lifted up just a little bit on the curbing and walked around on them. And luckily didn't impact the tire wall over there. But again, we lost a lot of ground here.
A lot of luck for him, and the fact that he was able to, he only lost about that, but maybe 8 seconds or 10 seconds or so. Could have lost a lot more, could have hit a wall. Lucky for him, completely clear of any damage. But now he's got a lot of work to do, as he's a couple seconds now behind Chris Walsh there, who's obviously one of his rivals, who also had his own unfortunate start to this race, non-contact type. So both Walsh and now Hartley are going to have to work their way through the pack.
Yeah, the two BMWs having to work back up through an entire field of Aston Martin Vantages here, as we do watch Chris Walsh come out of the keyhole, try to make a run on Jeff Jacobs, driver of the number 38 streetsurvival.org Aston Martin. Again, Jacobs, your fastest driver in practice this week, had the car down to, I believe, a 127.6. And we do already have some drivers who've eclipsed that in their race pace. Our leader, Martineau, down to a 127.28. I believe fastest driver so far this evening, Travis Schwenke, who currently sits in 3rd with a 127.26, but very within a couple hundredths of a second of each other up at the front of the field.
Well, I hate to say it, but the pre-race interview jinx may have come true again, David Payton has had an incident. Not sure what it is. He's back and running again, running decent laps, but he is in the back of the field and now on his way to the pits as one of the early stoppers in this race. He had already fallen back behind the entire field before this pit stop.
Oh, that's unfortunate. And, and we figured that the pit window for the GT4 cars would be somewhere between laps 21 and 30. So he may be in to try and get some repairs done on that car. All right, let's jump back over now to Chris Walsh, who has managed to get around the streetsurvival.org Aston of Jeff Jacobs. Next driver in line is the number 45 car. Now, Larry, I do remember earlier on in the season, and I'm trying to remember which round it was, and frankly, I'm trying to remember which driver it was, and it might have been Jeff Jacobs that we were talking to, who had mentioned that the Astons may be a little bit more tail happy than the rest of the GT4 field, and they, in some cases, with very tight, twisty tracks, and I think it was as it related to Barber, and that the drivers were finding that the rear end would in many cases just snap on them, and might be the way this course switches from on camber to off camber might be a bit of a challenge, that the BMW might be the better machine for the course.
It might be, but ironically, it's been two BMWs that we've seen who have decided to leave pavement and head to grass. A couple of our front runners there, but you still might be right that the BMW still might be the more stable of the platforms. My experience so far with these GT4s has been mostly in a fixed setup, sort of baseline, or the standard touring car type of. There's a fixed setup that you can run into setup.
Sure.
Where in that platform, that setup, the Astons as well as even the Mercedes are faster than the BMWs we found. But I think when you get your own custom setup site to site, you might be able to make the BMW overcome some of those things. Clearly, as we're seeing some of our front runners doing. But at the same time, our front runners, I have a feeling, would be front runners even if they were driving, handicapped on snow tires, because these guys are just that good.
All right, and so you see now a three-car breakaway here: Martineau, Kernan, Schwenke. And they have now opened up almost I believe close to an 8-second advantage over Chris Thorman, who is currently sitting 4th overall. Started 7th tonight, so good pickup for him after we've had some of our pro drivers had Hartley and Walsh leave the pavement.
It's going to keep an eye on some of these guys. Looking at David Payton, may have had to do a repair. He is back on track after about a 55-second pit stop, so it's good to see him back out there. As we were just talking about his teammate, Chris Thorman, typically stablemate, as those guys run together quite a bit, as we were talking about at the opening. Thorman having a good race. David, not so much.
Not so much. All right, let's take a look now as we're jumping on board with Austin Knight still. So long that he has been trying to hold off both Brandon Whitworth and Eric Violet, but he has been successful to this point as we're working currently lap 13, and I think Saunders managed to get around him somewhere around lap 7. So for about 5 laps now, and the two Civics don't seem to be making up any ground. It's been about a car length and a half separating Knight from Whitworth as we jump now back to the GT4 field here with Brennan Horn and of course Robert Hartley now just having gotten around the 45 car. Hartley having had that spin just a few laps ago.
Wondering if something just happened to Brennan Horn, because he actually dropped a couple spots. It was Steve Daniel as well as Rob Hartley were able to get on by him. So wondering if he had his own little spin that he just recovered from, giving those guys an opportunity to go on by. Certainly that's the easier way for Rob Hartley to get recovery, is if someone kind of pulls out of the way from them. But for Brennan, not having the race that he had wanted, having started this race up, I think it's 6th. Now down to 9th overall. We said 8th in pro, of course, but Steve Daniel, the driver's out in front of him. And Daniel doing quite a good job there in the M category, putting separation between he and the rest of that field as he's running up in 7th overall in the field, 1st in class. John Casey currently running 10th in the field, 2nd in class, 20 seconds back. So a great start here for Steve Daniel.
That's right, and but still a very good run for John Casey, who's made up 2 positions overall, but running 2nd in class. And right now he does have the entire TCR field between he and Robert Brist running in 3rd. And Russ Ruddick running in 4th.
And Ruddick is back out there after his splash and go start fuel stop. It just means his second stop will be a little bit shorter, but he's got some ground to gain, not the start he was hoping for. He is still in a pretty good points battle there in the M category. I don't think Russ wanted to give up those positions, but he has to work to get him back here with knowing he still has another pit stop to make. Steve Daniel staying with Jeff Jacobs pretty well here.
Yeah, very much so. And I apologize, Larry. I was listening for the engine sounds there, as some of the noises that these BMWs and I think the Mercedes in particular, just a deep throaty growl, even in detuned and well, not detuned, but in smaller displacement GT4 tune, just has that deep, distinctive throaty growl that you don't have with any of these other machines. Really an amazing sound. I'm getting word that Brennan Horn has gone off track once again and rejoined the field, but let's jump back over to this battle in the top 3 between Martineau, Kernan, and Schwenke. It's been I think the gap between these three drivers has been fairly consistent for the past number of laps. About a car length and a half to 2 car lengths separating each. No gain, no loss for the three.
Their pace is pretty solid. You look at their lap times here. Last time by mid 27s, 27.5 and 6 for the three of them. But you look at Rob Hartley on the recovery right now, 27.3 last time through. So he's trying to keep up. But still 16 seconds back from the lead. Is going to be quite a challenge to try and catch up. He's going to need a miraculous pit stop and maybe a little bit of help along the way to get there. As you can see him right now behind Steve Daniel, your AM leader. And Steve might do the gentlemanly thing, knowing he's 20 seconds up on his field. Might let Rob through, but we'll see how much of a gentleman he wants to be.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so far doesn't look like it, Larry, but we'll see when things straighten out here on course.
Rob's gonna definitely push the issue as much as he can. He's coming down here through Thunder Valley, heading up toward the carousel. Look at the speed he carries through that kink.
Yeah. Amazing there how much speed he carries. Oh, and you can see even right there has to check up just a little bit coming through the carousel to keep him running right up onto the back of the 96 machine. If anything, it compromised his exit speed coming onto the front straight here, and we'll see as he comes through turn 1 what kind of speed he can carry through the corner. You can actually see where he picks up about a half a car length just past the apex, but I don't think he's going to be close enough going into the keyhole. We'll see if he tries to make a move going down into turn 4.
It's all about the exit. It's all about getting on the gas. That keyhole is very difficult. It's not your average hairpin. Because of the way the pavement rises on entry and drops on exit, really requires a slightly different application of throttle. And it's not one of those where you just straight up dive deep under braking and let apex it either. You've got to actually kind of ride the curving a little bit down through it. It's kind of the weirdest thing. It's almost deceptive in the way that the optimal line is to take. And it looks like Hartley did exactly that, able to get on by Steve Daniel. Now he's got his sights set on the widest Aston Martin in the game, of course.
I'm glad you said the widest Aston in the game. Yes, Larry. As they
I don't know
over
Martin
the
that
rise.
well, but he's got a wide Aston.
That's right. As they come at it, turn 9, and yeah, it looked as though Hartley made it pretty easy going into turn 4. He got that speed coming out of the keyhole and just dropped the car down to the inside almost immediately. He was able to roll right past the Porsche, but you can see here what the effects of the draft will do, and the Porsche running a fairly consistent pace here right behind Hartley, not really losing a lot of ground. But let's see what happens and where and if Robert Hartley sees an opportunity to get around the number 38 of Jacobs. And you can see here a slightly different line, and let's see if he goes to take him under braking going into the keyhole. He does, but you can see here, Larry, that even that move from the inside, it can push you up and over top of that little tabletop on the outside of the keyhole. Makes it much more difficult to get down to the apex and get exit speed, but Hartley was able to do it. And I think Jeff Jacobs, seeing the writing on the wall, may have made it a little bit easier for Hartley.
Probably didn't want to put himself in too bad of a position there and lose 2 spots, so kind of holding ground, let Rob do his thing, and then follow him down that back straight, and maybe try to worry about the fight with your AM category leader Steve Daniel now right up behind Jeff Jacobs as we flash back up to the front. And these three, I swear, this could be lap 3 or this could be lap 17. I don't think these three have been any further or closer the whole race.
See there, Tony Kernan using every last bit of pavement and curbing coming out of the final corner. And here you see, Larry, where neither of these 3 drivers use that curbing to the inside coming out of the pit lane. Now, I did notice, and he was right after Hartley went around, we had an onboard shot of Chris Walsh, who has now moved up into 5th position. And Walsh also took a lot of curbing there coming through one with the rear wheels. And I always think that it's just tempting fate there to make that move, whether it be the rear wheels in something like the BMW or the front wheels in the TCR cars. Yeah, the front wheels in the TCR cars. I think those cars could probably handle that a little bit more easily as you have the car to kind of, you mat the throttle and let the car pull you out of there. But certainly the more you loosen up the rear end of these cars, the easier it is for them to go around.
Those TCR cars, though, they're sprung relatively stiff. And any curbing like that definitely upsets them. So you've got to be careful of that when you're running these TCRs, whether you drop a car off the curb on the exit, or you hit one of those risen curbs. Now, it's not quite a full sausage curb there at one, but it is definitely got a big old bump in it.
Yes.
So you take your front drive car with a heavy front spring, and it's gonna jar that pretty heavily.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the curbing type. Kind of reminds me of the curbing that you have in the lower portions of the S's at Road Atlanta, where if you ride up on them right before you get to turn 5, it can really upset the car. All right, so let's look here as we're talking about TCR and Andre Saunders, who was our pole sitter in the class. He has had to work himself up from about 5 seconds back from Kevin Carlisle, and he has indeed done that. He is now only a half a car length off the back of the number 27 machine as they are working lap 19. And,
I get the feeling that Kevin Carlisle runs the number 72 in his livery normally, and
yes.
For this series, he's number 27, as you can see on the windshield there, because his bumper still has the 72, but the 72, of course, belongs to Andre Saunders. You can see a good shot of it there. As you're from my screen, I'm looking at it from the back. There's a good shot.
Yeah, there we go, from the back bumper. Yep, exactly. So the two 72s. So you remember that Saunders was your pole sitter. He was also our fastest driver in practice. There you go, and you can see the cars taking that curbing and the little lift that they get from the inside when they go through.
It's an interesting battle. I'll tell you what, Saunders definitely came to play. Had that incident where we assume it was a time penalty for a course cut. Had to give us some time up, but there you can see he's been chipping away a couple of tenths per lap. And here he is, right on the tail of Kevin Carlisle. And if he can get a good run here, he might poke his nose on the inside, or maybe try it on the outside of 4. Carlisle not showing his hand yet which way he's going to go. Neither driver making a move, and they'll go single file again through madness. But I think Saunders at some points may try a move, or we're near the pit window here. He might just try doing an undercut and come on in early.
Yeah, matter of fact, for the TCR cars, and the TCR cars get a much better fuel mileage than the GT4 cars. We thought that perhaps the pit window would open up for them somewhere around lap 17. So we are firmly within that pit window for them. Should extend out somewhere to around lap 33. So a much wider window than the GT4 cars have as well. And you can see here pushing a little wide on exit, or probably on entrance to the keyhole. And I'm wondering if perhaps Kevin Carlisle, in trying to square off the keyhole in some of these other corners, might be trying to protect those front tires a little bit and save them for the end of the race.
He might be, or he could just be watching his mirrors a little bit, because right now Andre's doing a really good job of filling those mirrors, being on all sides at the same time, it seems, really pressuring Kevin. You see as they now go through the keyhole, good line for both. Get this nice apex here and clip and get a run. And that's critical if you're defending. If you're Kevin Carlisle trying to hold your position, getting that run there is the key to the entire lap. We saw going into the carousel, you can leave the door open, but there's nowhere to go. But if you leave the door open down this back straight, you're going to lose a position pretty quickly. But he did a good job on this lap. No opportunity here for Saunders to get underneath.
Yeah, and you can see Saunders about 3/4 of a car length back, no opportunity to get underneath or go around the outside and try to beat Carlisle up to the top of madness. As we jump back here to the lead, and look at this, Larry. Martineau and Kernan, they have lost Travis Schwenke. Schwenke now sitting about 6-7 car lengths back, might be just on the edge of the draft still, but he has he's got Chris Thorman and Chris Walsh. Actually, no, that's not Thorman and Walsh. I'm sorry. I think those are some lapped cars that are right back behind them that our leaders have passed.
I think it is, and that may have contributed to the gap that's kind of formed there between Kernan and Schwenke. But Schwenke not out of this yet. This is the kind of track where you can make it up. You know, those two guys in front miss one corner, suddenly Schwenke will be there. And he's only 9/10 back. I think we'll see him back up there in a lap or so. But definitely tough to work through traffic and hold those gaps to those leaders. If you take an extra corner beyond what they did, and suddenly you find yourself 10 car lengths back instead of usual 3 or 4.
Yeah, matter of fact, I think that might have been Russ Ruddick and David Payton. Yeah, there we go. There's the Aston Martin there. All right, tell you what, let's do this, Larry. Since we haven't had any drivers come in for their pit stops yet, and we're, at least for the GT4 cars, just now getting into their pit window, let's quickly go and take a break a little bit earlier than we normally break at the top of the hour, but let's take a break now. Thank some of our sponsors, and when we come back, hopefully, we'll see some of our pit action, and we'll take you all the way up to the checkered flag here from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course with the Extreme Motorsports Ricmotech Sports Car Series, round number 5, and we'll be right back.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. Whether you're just looking to have fun, train for race day, or become a serious esports competitor, Ricmotech has you covered. Hundreds of name brand parts. Support from experts that love sim racing. Trusted by the pros. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com. Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
Allow extreme scoring to do the work for you.
And we are back here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course for round number 5 of the Extreme Motorsports Ricmotech Sports Car Series presented by Proforma Texas Elite Graphics. I'm Greg Ginsburg along with Larry Lefty McLeod. And Larry, we didn't see our pit cycles starting up here, but we have had a major change up at the front of the field.
Yeah, Tony Kernan putting the pressure on, was able to get on by Cameron Martineau. And I'll tell you what, Schwenke, as we were talking just before the break there, was kind of fading back. That fade is all gone, as now it's a three-way fight again at the front, but this time with Tony Kernan leading the way.
Yeah, as you can see now as we go to the live action coming down into the keyhole, and Tony Kernan has managed to open up about maybe a 3.5-4 car length advantage now over Cameron Martineau and Schwenke right on the rear bumper. Now, the last time by when we were at break, we did see Schwenke fade a little bit to the inside to look to see if he could take a swipe at second place from Martineau. This time, as we're watching the off the back bumper of Cameron Martineau, Schwenke not quite close enough to give it a whirl as the drivers now come through the S's and set up for that big rise over the hump over at turn 9. Now let's jump back a little bit further back in the field as we've got Chris Walsh and Robert Hartley bottled up a little bit behind Chris Thorman, who is currently our 4th place runner. And both Walsh and Hartley on recovery drives. Walsh having gone off on lap number 1 at the top of Madness, and Hartley going off at turn number 1 about 6 laps in. And for the moment, it looks like
Walsh goes to the pits.
Yeah, it looks like Walsh realizing that perhaps he wasn't going to be able to get around Thorman very easily, is going to be our first GT4 Pro driver to come down the pit lane, take some fuel. We'll see if he takes any tires. Unlikely, but here's where we start as we jump back to TCR. And again, Andre Saunders all over the back, taking looks and trying to look for a way around Kevin Carlisle, the two Hyundai Elantra drivers. And we thought perhaps when we went to break, Larry, that Saunders, who was looking very racy coming through the keyhole, I think or probably not through the keyhole, but through the carousel, might have an opportunity, but he has just not managed to find a way around yet.
I suspect right now that Saunders might be a hair quicker, but it's where he's quicker. And I think it is through this section right here coming into the carousel. I think he's got some time, but he can't use it. There's just nowhere to go. So he's just stuck behind him, and I'm surprised that he hasn't decided to come in for his stop. And he may be one of those guys that says, I'm going to stop on lap X, and that's when I'm going to stop, and doesn't change from his plan. But he may want to think about calling an audible here and coming on in and getting that opportunity to maybe get some clear track, assuming there is clear track where he would end up coming out.
Yeah, and you can see they're starting to come up on the, it looks like, I think that's Brad Husty in the 37 machine that is just stopped ahead of them.
Yeah, he has already made his stop. Yeah. He's close this time, though, is Andre. We flash back to our leaders overall, and still Tony Kernan leading this threesome.
And here we go, making the run down to turn 4. Andre Saunders to driver's right, Kevin Carlisle to driver's left. Carlisle is going to have the position going up into madness. And, well, we'll see if Saunders can pop back down to the inside. He doesn't. He's going to drop back in line there as the pavement just goes away from him.
Great defense there for Carlisle, knowing that as long as he can hold his line through 4, he can keep the lead there going through 5. It's exactly what he did. Don't be surprised at some point if Saunders tries a move next time to try and get to the outside and put on that same sort of move. And the same line that the defensive Kevin Carlisle just put on. Saunders still struggling to find any other place to get on by. Look at him, just paper gap there between the two of them through the carousel.
Yeah, carrying a lot more speed into the carousel as Saunders, but again, just nowhere to go. And now Saunders takes a look to the inside coming into turn 1. Certainly wasn't going to be able to get up even to the quarter panel in that short run between 13 and 1. But now I think Saunders has Kevin Carlisle's attention. You can see again taking a little peek to the inside, coming into the keyhole and trying to push the 27 car wide.
Yeah, nice clean line through the keyhole there for Saunders. Little tap of the brakes I had seen from Carlisle. Not sure how well Carlisle was able to get a strong exit. We'll see if Saunders now tries going left instead of right, or if the only line he's given is going to be the right. He's going to wait for the next time.
Yeah, he's going to wait one more try. I think he was waiting to see if Carlisle was going to move to the inside and defend rather than stay to the outside. But I think the only thing that he's going to give Andre Saunders is that driver's right, that inside line going in the 4.
Yeah, and I think at this stage of the race, that's the way you do it. You continue to give him the more difficult way through madness instead of giving him the easy way if he can hold through 4. But right now, the two of these guys holding form. Looks like perhaps a little quicker in a couple of spots for Carlisle, but certainly through the carousel and maybe a few other places, a little quicker for Saunders. So good little battle heating up.
All right, coming out of the pits now, Steve Daniel pits in from the lead in GT4 AM, comes out still in the lead in GT4 AM with John Casey in the 046 Racing Mercedes right back behind. But the difference is John Casey has not taken his pit stop. And here we go. And coming down the pit lane, we've got Tony Kernan pitting in. We also have Travis Schwenke pitting in. You also saw a little bit further back from there Eric Violet, who was pitting in from 4th position, or probably he was pitting in from 5th position, pardon me, in TCR.
I'm not sure we can tell if these guys take tires. I don't know if they always pop up on pit stops in the GT4s, but we'll see by their time deltas. Just for reference, Chris Walsh's pit stop was about 28 seconds. Steve Daniel in that Porsche, his was about 26.5 seconds. So we'll see where these guys drop down and take off. Schwenke is down and ready to roll out, but Kernan has not. So I wonder if Kernan is putting on
tires. Yeah. And so just a touch under 27 seconds for Travis Schwenke.
About 10 seconds longer for Kernan. So about 36 seconds or so as he's now gone through exit. This will be interesting. Still with 35 minutes to go in this race. Is a tire change going to be worth it? 10 seconds, a lot of time to make up for it. We'll see if the speed there we saw. Obviously, Kernan has the pace tonight, was in the lead at the time of the stops. we'll see if now in cold tires, we'll see if these tires last and he's quick at the end of the race.
And so Tony Kernan pits in from the lead, comes out in 7th position. And Larry, look at this. Chris Walsh, who, of course, also has taken a pit stop, is only about 10 seconds back, not that far off the back of Kernan. And Dennis Branch back in the production trailer, he thinks that perhaps Schwenke might have only taken 2 tires, and it seems a little odd, I think, in these GT4 cars to maybe only take 2. I mean, certainly the TCR cars, you'll find if the drivers take tires, they'll only take the fronts. But
you could get away with taking left sides around here. I know we've seen that trick at some tracks, and certainly the MX-5s. But here you go again, Saunders trying to flash to the inside, not happen, as Carlisle holds him off again. But yeah, go back to the GT4s. Definitely possible for a driver to take just left sides. Hopefully, you would think that's the side that takes the bigger way around here. Corners
right.
like turn 4, the carousel, keyhole, all of them right-handers. But it does upset the balance of the car for a lap or two while the temperatures all equalize. We'll see if that is any sort of penalty either for Schwenke, who we saw up on the jacks, or even some of the other drivers we didn't see, like Chris Walsh. But we know that Kernan appears to have taken possibly all 4, and we'll see what kind of benefit that gives him.
So, Larry, do you think that as we're back to our battle for the lead in TCR, you said, okay, well, maybe Andre Saunders, he has in his head, I'm pitting in on lap X. Coming into the pit lane now, Cameron Martineau from the lead, and we'll see what he does and where he comes out in comparison to Tony Kernan and Chris
Rob
Walsh.
Hartley is also in. See him coming in there.
So a good portion of our pro field now coming into the pit lane. So going back to that TCR battle, Larry, I'm wondering if it's more a question of Andre Saunders playing chicken and waiting for Carlisle to pit in. And then that way Saunders, who sees that he's got quite a bit of open track ahead of him, rather than running the risk of coming out, right behind another car, is looking to just to take advantage of that open track that he has and maybe put down some time.
There could be a little bit of that. There could be, this could be the best situation for him right now in terms of putting down laps in this endurance 75-minute race, knowing that Austin Knight and Brandon Whitworth are only 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds back.
They've been closing things down considerably the last couple of laps.
If you're Saunders, you got to think about that, right? It's not just a 2-man battle with Carlisle in front of him. If he comes in, he runs the risk of losing spots to Knight Whitworth behind him. If he just gets stuck behind some other traffic for just 1 lap is all it would take. Whereas sticking with Carlisle, he knows what his pace is. It may not be the pace he wants to run, but he knows the pace is going to be consistent. But you can see Knight and Whitworth are just under 2 seconds now behind Saunders.
All right, Larry, let's do this. Let's see if we can jump back over to the lead in GT, or not to the lead in GT4, but over to Cameron Martineau, because I think Cameron Martineau just had the pit stop, maybe not of his life, but a great pit stop. Cameron Martineau comes out in 3rd place right now, ahead of Travis Schwenke, ahead of Tony Kernan. Remember, when this pit stop cycle started, Tony Kernan was your leader. He now falls back into 3rd. And he's got Kernan now has Hartley only 2 seconds back, and it looks like Hartley has leapfrogged Chris Walsh in the pit window as well. So big changes up at the front as now both Thorman and Jacobs bring their Aston Martins down onto the pit lane, and that is going to elevate Cameron Martineau back up into the lead. And you can see they're coming up on the Mercedes of John Casey going into the keyhole. But for the moment, it is a 2-car battle with Martineau and Schwenke, and that long pit stop from Tony Kernan, the extra 10 seconds that he spent on the pit lane, certainly hurting him as we see him just now coming out of the keyhole.
Yeah, and that right now, that is the difference between them. Is these guys obviously just a couple tenths between them, a car length or 2. Kernan about 8 seconds back from Martineau. And I'll tell you what, in 30 minutes, that 8 seconds is going to be tough to do. What he's going to need is to be efficient through traffic and hope these guys do what you're seeing right here and getting stuck behind the TCR for a couple of quarters. That'll help Tony, But Tony at least will have the fresher tires at the end of the race, theoretically, so that if he needs to get around traffic, he can do it a little bit more aggressively with the fresher tires than perhaps these guys who have to be a little bit more delicate on theirs. You can see right here even struggling to get up alongside the 68 of Tom Jenkins as they're just coming up here now towards Carousel. Very difficult to do for these guys, losing about a half a second to Tony Kernan behind him. So that's how this gap and ebb and flow of this race is going to go. Kernan's got to be quick through traffic and hope Martineau and Schwenke struggle. And that does look like it closed the book on the pit stops for the Pro and the GT4 AM categories. I think all the GT4 cars are in. So now we're just waiting for the TCRs to make their stops. And so far, only Eric Violet of the front runners there has taken his. We'll kind of see, when does Saunders finally decide to make a move and come in, or does he stick behind Carlisle?
That's right. So Violet has come in. Brist had taken a very early pit stop as well, and he is sitting back in 19th position, currently sitting well, in third in AM there. I'm sorry, Robert Brist is in AM. I'm thinking of Brad Husty, pardon me. Husty, who had taken a very early pit stop in his number 37 Velociter. Yeah, here we go, still back to that battle for the lead with Kevin Carla, Andre Saunders, and Austin Knight and Brandon Whitworth continue to close things down here. And so, you know, Larry, I'm still and as you see here, as for a moment there, perhaps Saunders is I think has a pretty good understanding of exactly what is happening now, but I'm really starting to question more and more every single lap why either Saunders didn't pit in or why he continues to not pit in.
My only other thought is he's trying to fuel save. And he's going to make his stop just a little quicker than Carlisle's or Knight, because Knight, you got to figure, is using every bit of gas that car's got, trying to chase these two guys down all by himself. Carlisle might be able to save a little bit because he knows all he has to do is just keep the Saunders Mohawk Racing car behind him in certain corners. But Knight is probably just going gangbusters and using everything that Little Velociter's got. So Saunders might be able to shortcut a fuel stint. We'll see. I got to imagine in the next 2 or 3 laps, we're going to see this whole field of these TCRs come in for their stop.
And again, we expected that they could probably go somewhere along the lines of 33 laps.
There goes Schwenke.
Here we go. Travis Schwenke looking now to the inside, coming up through Madness as they roll down the hill into the S's. And Travis Schwenke now takes over the lead from Cameron Martineau to move the Orion Racing number 16 machine up into that lead position, move Cameron Martineau back into second. And as we were talking about the TCR cars, you know, we were looking at that pit window extending out to maybe lap 33. And our TCR drivers, they are currently working their 32nd lap, Larry.
Austin Knight decided to pull the trigger. He has come in for his stop, and he is back out again 17 seconds later, so good for him. And now we'll keep our eye now on the top 3, being Carlisle, Saunders, and Whitworth. Now only 2 seconds back of the front 2. He's been staying close all night long. We'll see where Knight comes out relative to Violet. And still, Saunders not able to get around Carlisle. These two have got to be stopping soon now. With Knight coming in, Whitworth, Saunders, Carlisle should be next.
Yeah, and you know, Whitworth, of course, lost a drafting partner there because he did have Knight maybe pulling him up towards the lead after we had seen he had dropped off when he was running all by himself. But we'll see here if he can make up any ground on these two drivers that are battling. But now let's see whether or not Kevin Carlisle or Andre Saunders decide to come in the pit lane. Saunders takes it looks like they're both going to come in at the same time, Larry, and that is going to move Brandon Whitworth now up into the lead as our only driver in the top 5 that has not, actually I believe our only driver now in TCR that has not taken a pit stop. But let's we'll watch.
This will be fascinating to see whose stop is faster. Was Saunders able to do any fuel save? Was he able to shortcut his stop? And no, as it's Carlisle out first. Saunders is still sitting there. Now he's moving, but boy, he's actually going to lose time, it looks like, here in this pit stop, as his pit stop was about 3 seconds longer. And I got to wonder, did Kevin Carlisle put in enough fuel? because he was only stopped for about 12 seconds. Everyone else is 15 or 16. So this is going to be fascinating. This is one of those where if the clock strikes midnight and they're about to cross our finish, great for Carlisle. If it crosses midnight just after and they got to do a whole nother lap around, it could be difficult for Carlisle to get to the finish.
All right, well, hopefully we can jump back a little bit from this TCR battle because, Larry, coming out of turn one, we had Travis Schwenke and Cameron Martineau side by side, and as they come out of the keyhole, that is still the case as Schwenke now appears to have been able to hold off Martineau at least for the time being, but now Martineau moves down to the inside, not quite close enough to shove the car down to the apex. He's going to follow Schwenke up towards or up into madness, but it was a very exciting run going down into the carousel where they were side by side as we were watching which one of our TCR cars was going to come out first. The BMWs there were trying to figure out who was going to also come out first.
Well, I tell you what, all this battling has done, the one person benefiting the most of this was Tony Kernan. Remember, it was about 8 seconds. Now it's down to 4.5 between this Martineau-Schwenke battle back to Tony Kernan in third. So it is far from over here for Tony Kernan. He just keeps watching that gap close and close the more these two guys continue to battle it out.
And we know that Kernan is most likely got at least 2 newer tires than both Schwenke and Martineau have, that it might certainly help him out at the end of the race. Here, as you can see, you'd see Kernan giving the headlights to some back markers, and now on the pit lane. Look at this, Carlisle. Larry, maybe you were right. Maybe Carlisle realized he just did not put enough fuel in the car to get to the end, and just realized it much earlier than, you know, with 3 or 4 laps left.
And I'm wondering how long, because now he was there 26 seconds. I don't know if he decided to put on all new tires or perhaps even had to serve a penalty. I'm not sure, because he was in that stop now, this time longer than anybody. He goes from the shortest pit stop to the longest pit stop, all in about 2 laps. Unfortunate for him, because he had definitely been real strong controlling this race, essentially from the pass to Saunders gave him what appeared to be a time penalty for Saunders. Saunders caught back up, but Carlisle led ever since then, and now, unfortunately, with the back-to-back stops, going to shuffle back to 5th in TCR.
Yeah, and Larry, as I've been listening to race control, it has been a very, very quiet evening for our stewards. Nothing, and here we go. Oh, that's just a pass for position there, or not a pass for position, but been very quiet in the stewards room, and I think that essentially Carlisle came in most likely because he just didn't have enough fuel in the car, and maybe decided that he was going to throw tires on as well, and use that as maybe a last chance gasp. As we have, you can see Schwenke now opening up a bit of a lead as Martineau is having to deal with some TCR traffic, and has now dropped back about 4 car lengths back behind. I guess, well, we had to get around Brandon Whitworth, I believe, the 42 machine.
Schwenke did a great job of ducking around the TCR car as they were still going through Thunder Valley, giving him a little bit of a breathing room, able to put somebody between he and Martineau. Martineau finally was able to get on by as they got out of the carousel, and now it's about a 1 second gap. But again, I'm looking at Kernan. Kernan just 3 seconds back from these guys. He's closing, it seems, every lap another half a second or more. So watching Tony Kernan get this work done, there you can see how he's closing on Martineau, a second a lap at times. So this is going to be fascinating, as Martineau again is this time stuck behind Saunders, the 72 in TCR. Saunders able to yield, but again, not before Martineau had to slow down for a corner or two.
There you go, and now you can see coming up right back behind Andre Saunders, we've got Whitworth, we've got
there's Tony.
Yeah, I was going to say we've got Whitworth, we've got Knight, and then Tony Kernan's right in that little fight as well, as Kernan gets around Austin Knight, and he is certainly closing things down. He's got our top 2 drivers in TCR to contend with right now, but he is definitely closing the gap. Yeah,
it's fascinating because he is dispatching TCR cars very quickly, unlike we're watching Martineau struggling, making it to probably 2-3 corners before he can get by. You watch Tony Kernan, and it seems to get by as soon as he catches, he's on by. We'll see what he can do with Whitworth now in front of him as coming up to the keyhole. Schwenke still, though, watching his mirrors, about 1 second ahead of Martineau. Yep, but look at that. I can see the background. Tony
Yeah.
Kernan already underneath the TCR, getting a run down this back straight. There he goes.
Yeah, very late run, squares off going into the apex, and was pretty much around the Civic Type bar before he even exited the keyhole. And we'll see here how much of an effort Saunders makes to hold on. You can see there Saunders moving all the way to the inside, giving the BMW the run to his disadvantage, because that's allowing Whitworth to get right back into this TCR battle. That the 4 seconds or so that Saunders had at the end of the pit cycle there over Whitworth has now completely disappeared, as he has given way to to our top 3 drivers in GT4.
That's tough spot there for Saunders, because he knows he's in a class battle with Whitworth, and of course Austin Knight just 2 seconds back from there. But at the same time, he's actually has a blue flag that's shown to him when when Swanky, or when in that case Tony Kernan, comes up behind him, and he needs to do some kind of yield. Now he doesn't have to completely yield through the corner. He can kind of pick and choose. He is the leading car, but he also doesn't want to be blocking the way for Tony Kernan to get on through. So for Saunders, tough position to be in. Now he's got to defend a very hungry Brandon Whitworth, who thinks maybe this is a shot. Maybe the Honda can finally keep up with the Hyundai here.
Yeah, and and if you take a look at their best time so far tonight, only about 1/10 of a second separating Saunders from Whitworth. So although it has appeared that the Civic Type R just does not have the ultimate pace here around Mid-Ohio, the difference isn't all that great between the Elantra and the Civic. And depending on what type of GT4 traffic comes up on them, Whitworth certainly has that chance, especially if he can stay in the draft.
And depends on how they wear their tires as well. We've talked to these guys season upon season. One thing they always talk about is, if you're not going to swap the front tires, you got to protect those front tires,
right?
Because you got to make sure that they're there at the end. And I think that may be a strategy here that could be playing into Whitworth's hands. We saw Saunders struggling earlier behind Kevin Carlisle. Often these cars, they have just enough downforce on that when you're in open air, you can keep the tires locked in and not wear them too much. When you get up underneath somebody, you tend to do a lot more sliding around. You wear those front tires. So I'm wondering right now what kind of condition Andre Saunders' front tires are in relative to Whitworth and Knight behind him.
Yeah, and now he's still running very tidy lines through some of these corners now that he is not underneath the back bumper of Kevin Carlisle. But again, he was working behind that number 27 car for 15 plus, actually more than 15 laps, about 18 laps, and so could have done quite a bit of damage. Although Whitworth was sitting right back behind Austin Knight the whole time as well.
So much for Saunders having tire wear. He just turned his fastest lap of the race. It's 29.57. So tells you how much the commentators really know. Apparently it's nothing. The driver knew what he was doing all along. And now we flash back to our lead in GT4 Pro, where Martineau is back underneath Swanky, almost literally, as they go back up into madness.
And as you can see there, they're coming up on some slower traffic as well. Coming up on, I believe it's Brennan Horn in the number 45 machine, the AMG M4, or probably the AMG GT4 machine of Horn. And so traffic may continue to play a big part in the lead of this race. And as we're looking now, Tony Kernan now sitting about 4.5, actually about close to 4 seconds now back from Martineau. So
he's been pretty steady back there now for a couple laps, as they had worked their way through a lot of traffic. The traffic right now, not so bad here for a couple laps, but as you mentioned, they are coming up on a couple of G2D e-racing drivers. Only one of them is going to be there when they get there, and so it looks like a big spin. I can't tell who that was.
That
34 Peyton or 64.
That was the
Peyton
that went around.
Wow, and he almost got in the way of Tony Kernan there. Kernan able to take the evasive action and get around him, but for Peyton, boy, talk about almost losing it entirely. Had a big slide, lots of tire smoke. Able to recover, but these leaders probably saw that and went, oh, there goes our race. Luckily able to get on through.
And they both go around the outside of Brennan Horn. As you can see, a long line of cars up ahead of them.
Now we're back to this game of how long does it take them to get through each of these bits of traffic versus Tony Kernan's ability to get through traffic. 15 minutes to go in the race. Kernan has done what he's supposed to do. He's cut what was an 8-second lead, now down to about a 3.5. but it's also one of those, it's one thing to catch them and another thing to pass them.
That's right. And they're coming up right now on the back of our TCR field, coming up on Brad Husty and Tom Jenkins, both in Hyundai Elantras. And they're probably coming up on them, Larry, at the best possible spot as they're going to be coming out of turn 13 onto the front straight. And if they get the timing right, should be able to just carry a little bit more speed through turn 1. And, well, a little bit extra braking there, it looks like, from our leader, Schwenke. I thought perhaps they'd be able to carry the speed on the way up to the keyhole, and at least Tom Jenkins is going to yield, but it looks like they're both going to have to follow Brad Husty through the keyhole.
They are, and again, just still watching Kernan's gap there, 3.3 and falling, as Kernan's not going to be held up at all by Jenkins. See if he gets held up at all by Husty on his way down into 4. Husty yielding to the first 2. Not to yield to the other TCR.
Not to the other 2, yeah, exactly. And we saw there Tony Kernan starting to make up a little bit more ground as he's cresting over the top of the madness right now. Of course, he's going to have to deal with those 2 TCR entries as well.
And he's been aggressive with them to this point, even so much as being aggressive through, it turns 8 and 9, which they're going through now. We'll see if he tries to duck underneath any one of them through here. So far, though, still that 3.4 seconds back from Martineau. Martineau, I don't know if he's going to be looking over his shoulders too much. He knows that 12, 13 minutes left in this race. As difficult as this place is to pass, he's going to have to find a spot, might just have to take it when it presents itself, even if that's now versus waiting until last lap. This isn't exactly Road America where you can calculate and make a pass. You pretty much here have to take it wherever it comes.
That's right, and plan and get exit speed out of the keyhole, or yeah, exactly. Just wait for somebody. You can't always go to the checkered flag and wait for them to make a mistake, because it may never come here. As we now have Tony Kernan ducking underneath the TCR machine of Tom Jenkins, gets past the 63 car. Next in line is that silver and blue number 37 Elantra, and Kernan made it look pretty easy there. But
lost a couple tenths though.
Yeah, and he's still sitting at about 3.9 seconds back. He's going to go deep onto the brakes. Going into 4, he's going to get around the Elantra there, and now he's got nothing but clear air up to Cameron Martineau and Schwenke.
Martineau still on the tail of Schwenke, just 2 tenths, about a car length or so back. So we'll keep our eyes on them as Schwenke, look at this, just barely able to have daylight between he and Cameron Martineau. Those 2 BMWs are just flying around this place right now. Still running lap times in the high 27s, even fighting for the lead.
Yeah, and Martineau taking a little bit of grass coming up over the crest of the hill at turn 9. Rear end didn't seem to complain all that much, as he had the car pretty much squared up, and carried a good amount of speed in the Thunder Valley as they come now down into turn 1. And, the last couple of laps, it does look as though at least making the run out of 1 and heading down towards the keyhole, Schwenke does have a little bit better exit speed, but, whatever he gains there in exit speed is lost, I think, in the draft and then under braking going into the keyhole as well.
Well, he got a decent run here as the gap does appear to be growing just a bit as they get to the kink here on the back straight. I don't know that Martineau's going to have much of an opportunity on this lap to make any kind of a move going into 4. He's got a little bit of draft, but you can see they're already on the brakes. Not able to do much there. But these guys, we've already seen it side by side through 4, 5, and 6. That's how Travis was able to get this position. Curious now if Cameron's thinking it back a couple laps ago and saying, how do I make that same move and turn the tables? Maybe try and get side by side through 4 and hold it and finish the pass into 6. It's not one of the easiest passes in motorsports.
No,
he may not be given much choice tonight.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think his options are starting to dwindle here, Larry. That he may have to push the car in there, as we've got now just about 10 minutes remaining here from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, round number 5 of the Ricmotech Sprint Sports Car Series. Pardon me. Presented by Performance Texas Elite Graphics. And real quick, Larry, as we are watching this battle, there is a lot on the line here. that we are going to be awarding to one lucky driver here in the Sports Car Series a great package of 5 hot laps in a supercar of their choice with Exotics Racing at Speed Vegas Motorsports Park. And as we have here, look at this Schwenke pushing very wide going into the keyhole that time by Martineau, much more tidy, but maybe still didn't carry quite as much speed. Yeah, look at that. As if anything, Schwenke's actually opened up a little bit more of an advantage as they make their way down into turn 4. And so part of this prize package, our winning driver is going to get a $299 gift certificate to cover the cost of some classroom instruction, having 2 laps around the course with a professional racing driver, and then 5 laps in a premium supercar of their choice. It could be a Ferrari F430, a Lamborghini Gallardo, Porsche GT3, Audi R8 V10, you name it, a C8 Corvette, you name it, tons and tons of different choices there. And the way you increase your chance of winning is by compiling and racking up more points in the Sports Car Series. For every point you earn this season, you'll have another, basically another chance in this raffle with all of our other drivers and a better chance to win. So good luck to all of our drivers. You don't have to win the championship to win this prize, but certainly will help your chances of coming away with a great prize package. As we jump back here to the action with just about 8 minutes remaining, and look at that, Schwenke getting very loose coming through the keyhole here, and it looks like Martineau's maybe cleaned up and tied it up his line.
Best chance. Yeah, Schwenke definitely wasn't clean through keyholes. His car seems to be a bit loose here at this stage of the race, and Martineau now at this point, probably any daylight he gets, he'll try and take, not to be in this lap. I'll tell you what, talking about that raffle and that prize, Schwenke is the one that probably needs the good, strong finish. He's had 1 podium finish this season. He's actually skipped the race already, but he had a couple of incidents in some other races that prevented him from getting good finishes. He could use a good one here tonight. And of course, Martineau comes into tonight second in points to Mike Dam. Mike not here. Martineau kind of in the catbird seat with a shot to take over the points lead, but he would love to get a win and a few more numbers in the old raffle prize bin there to see if he can have a better shot at winning that. But he's got to get around Travis Schwenke to do it.
That's right. So Schwenke currently sitting 8th in the championship. He was 10th coming into our last round, and this would certainly be a good shot in the arm for him if he can come away with the win. As we now have 6 minutes remaining, that's going to be what, about 4 laps, Larry, give or take?
Should be, as they just crossed the stripe. I got to figure they'll get that 4th lap. All dictated by where the clock is when these guys, the leaders of the overall race, come across that start finish.
That's right. And even though they took the start on the back straight here over by the kink over at turn 3, they will take the checkered flag at the traditional finish line on that short run out of turn 13 heading down into turn 1 as they come down now into turn 4 past China Beach. And as it's been for almost the last 5-6 laps now, Larry, Cameron Martineau just not close enough to even force a pass going down into turn 4.
No, as slippery as Travis Schwenke seems to be going into 4, or into the keyhole, he's getting great exits and just not leaving the door open going into the turn 4. Very difficult to do in what appears to be a car that's a little bit loose under braking. So Cameron's got to kind of force the issue somewhere. Maybe try and force Schwenke to a bad braking line going in there even further into the keyhole, or work on his own exit coming out to maybe get alongside going into 4. Inside of 5 minutes to go.
All right, and you can see there a little bit further back, Tony Kernan just has not been a factor. Still 3.6 seconds back from our leaders, who only made up a couple tenths. As we jump back now to the battle for the lead in TCR, and Saunders still having issues trying to hold off Brandon Whitworth as they had come up onto the back of our 7th place driver, and that was Jenkins. But now look at this, as coming out of the keyhole, Travis Schwenke runs very wide, but Larry, I don't think Martineau is able to do anything with it. He doesn't get a great exit out of the keyhole either.
No, I did not see how that went on corner entry. All of a sudden, they were side by side coming out, and it was Schwenke able to get the better drag race run down to 4. But Martineau, it seems like, is starting to pull out all the tools from the tool bag right now to see how he can make this pass. That may have been one attempt. We'll see if he's got a little extra crescent wrench to throw at this, or maybe have to
Or a 10mm socket, something.
grab a torque spit somewhere. Well, a 10mm socket's a hard one to find.
Yes.
But he's gonna need to do something now with figure probably 2 laps to go next time by.
That's right. Well, yeah, it's a BMW. Probably needs one of those little star sockets anyhow. All right, so as they come down into the keyhole here, when they cross the stripe, they'll be starting the 49th lap. They'll have just about about 3.5 minutes remaining here on the clock.
They might get that 3rd lap then if we get 3.5, because right now they're turning lap times less than 1.5 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised to get 3 laps to duel this out, which is another shot or 2 for Cam and Martineau to get on by as they come again through the keyhole, this time a lot more smooth than the last.
And you wonder what could have been as Robert Hartley just turns the fastest lap of the race at a 1:27.2, and considerably faster than, at least at the moment, than some of our other drivers here. And if he hadn't had that early spin, could have been, he could have been in this battle as well here, as Schwenke now continues to have just the gap that he needs coming down into turn 4 to hold off Martineau. Martineau's always seemingly a car length to a car length and a half back, and just not quite close enough to make that distance up under braking in the 4.
Not yet. We've got to see what Martineau's got. Again, we expect 2 more laps next time by. See if Martineau's got something up his sleeve to try and make a pass on Schwenke. And if he doesn't make it stick and the both of them slow down, you just might an outside chance have a Tony Kernan there to say, hey boys, what's up? But he's still 4 seconds back from this battle with what appears to be 2 laps to go.
And here we go as they cross the stripe. We've got 2 minutes remaining, and so it will be this lap, and it will be one more, as things are definitely tight and heating up here in GT4, also in TCR, as I believe it's only about a half a car length separating our 2 leaders in that class as well. And you can see here as Andre Saunders now, probably at the most opportune time, has a GT4 car, has I think the number 64 machine sitting right between he and our second place runner Brandon Whitworth. That 64 machine, he's gonna beat the 2 TCR cars down to turn number 1. That may bottle things up just a little bit more for Saunders and Whitworth. We'll have to keep an eye on that as we jump back to the battle for the overall lead with Schwenke, with Martineau. And it looked like they may not have to deal with that slower traffic, but they are coming up on at least one more car that is making its way into Thunder Valley right now, as we jump back again quickly onto the back straight, running down in towards turn number 4 for the battle for the lead in TCR. You could see there Saunders maybe a quarter of a car width over to driver's right, but certainly not close enough for Whitworth to take a stab at it. But as they come over Madness, Whitworth almost goes right through the back of that Elantra now as they go through the S's.
Whitworth is definitely as close as he has been, and he's showing absolute strong pace here at the finish. I thought perhaps once these guys cleared the traffic, about 10 laps ago, that Saunders might start pulling away. Not to be, as Whitworth says, I think I've got something for you. But here we have the battle in TCR and the battle in GT4 Pro coming down to the last lap heroics. Who's got it, who doesn't? Schwenke still holding off as they come around the keyhole for the last time. Can he hold off Martineau into turn 4 and try to solidify a victory here?
And you'd see there as Kevin Carlisle pulled all the way driver's right to let our leaders through. Sad finish for Kevin Carlisle, currently sitting 5th in TCR, but our leaders now come up into Madness once again. Schwenke with about a car length and a quarter advantage over Cameron Martineau as they went under braking, and he continues to hold that constant as they come through the S's underneath the Honda bridge and under braking in towards turn number 9 and up into Thunder Valley.
It looks like he might just have enough, as I'm watching the gap of Whitworth closing on Saunders, as those guys are a 10th apart, back on track, probably coming down the end of the back straight, as these two are dueling it out, going into carousel for the final time. Does Schwenke have enough? Can he get the power down and take this victory tonight?
All right, well, Larry, you know what? I think we are off because it is a checkered flag in the air. We had crossed the minute 15 mark, and taking the win, Travis Schwenke, 0.3 of a second over Cameron Martineau. Tony Kernan is going to come home in third. Let's jump over to the battle for the win in TCR, where it is Andre Saunders, your pole sitter tonight in TCR, for the moment, holding off Brandon Whitworth with only 2 more corners remaining. They come down into the carousel, and this is going to be very, very tough for Whitworth to overcome as they come down in with just 1 corner onto that very short front straight. It's not a Road America. There's not a big advantage there, big way to draft past. And taking the win is Andre Saunders in the Mohawk Racing number 72 Elantra. Finishing second will be Brandon Whitworth. And crossing the line in third, taking the podium for the 2nd race in a row, is Austin Knight in the Lead Paul Racing Hyundai Velociter. So as more drivers cross the line here, of course, we talked about in GT4 Pro, Schwenke, Martineau, Kernan, your top 3. Hartley will come home in 4th, Chris Thorman 5th. Chris Walsh will come home in 6th. Jeff Jacobs will finish in 7th. In GT4 AM, Steve Daniel, there he is, driver of the number 96 SKKJ Racing Porsche Cayman. He takes the win. John Casey from 046 Racing, he'll come home in 2nd, and finishing 3rd is Robert Brist. So let's do this, Larry. Let's take a quick break. We'll thank some of our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll talk to some of our podium finishers here from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, where you have just seen round number 5 of the Ricmotech Sports Car Series presented by Performa Texas Elite Graphics. We'll be right back.
Allow Extreme Scoring to do the work for you.
Ricmotech high-performance sim racing equipment. Whether you're just looking to have fun, train for race day, or become a serious esports competitor, Ricmotech has you covered. Hundreds of name brand parts. Support from experts that love sim racing. Trusted by the pros. There's only one place to go, Ricmotech.com.
All right, and we are back here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, where we have just seen round number 5 of the Ricmotech Sports Car Series presented by Performa Texas Elite Graphics. I'm Greg Ginsburg along with Larry Lefty McLeod, and what an amazing race, Larry, both in GT4 and in TCR. Taking the overall win tonight, Travis Schwenke from Orion Racing with Cameron Martineau only 0.37 of a second behind. Tony Kernan, we think he might have backed things off the last couple of laps. He will come home in 3rd for Kernan Motorsports. In GT4 AM, Steve Daniel with a commanding win for SKKJ Racing, finishing 2nd. John Casey from 046 Racing, and then finishing in 3rd was Robert Brist from Brist Racing. And then finally in TCR, great battle to the very end. Andre Saunders from Mohawk Racing, our pole sitter tonight, takes the win, with Brandon Whitworth from D2D E-Racing finishing in second. Austin Knight, again for the second race in a row, on the podium in the Lead Paul Racing Hyundai Velociter. All right, so Larry, taking a look at the green room, we've got a bunch of folks here. Why don't we do this? Why don't we bring in Steve Daniel, driver of the number 96 SKKJ Racing Porsche Cayman, our winner tonight in GT4 AM.
All right, Steve Daniels joined us. And Steve, congratulations on the AM victory tonight. Walk me through a little bit of your evening.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun out there. It's 75 minutes. You got to pay a lot of attention through the whole race, but was trying to keep up with Jeff, but he pulled away after the pit stop.
Yeah, he looks like you guys have a good little bit of a battle there, but I was looking to see where the rest of the AM category was, and what a dominant win for you. Looks like almost about a lap between you and this field. Are you just that comfortable around Mid-Ohio?
I do really like this track. I think some of that is unfortunate. Unfortunately, I think some people haven't been able to make it the last few weeks, but you got to take advantage when you can. So it's worked in my favor.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I look at this, it's over your third victory this season. A couple of points still now between you and Russ, who didn't have that good of a night. A little bit of a struggles for him, but as we get here towards the tail end of the season, you've got a pretty good margin. Are you getting a little excited, kind of getting focused in on what could be?
Yeah, definitely trying to. I've been in this spot a few times and have had some incidents take me out. So hoping to finish up the last two races and have some good success.
Well, absolutely. And we wish you that success, and congrats on a great win tonight. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to and a thanks to?
Just the usual. Thank everybody who puts this league together, and Apex Racing for all of your broadcast and support for this great league we've got.
It is a great league and got some great drivers, including yourself, taking a third victory this season, Steve. So congrats on that, and can't wait to see you in the next round. Steve Daniel, your winner in GT4 AM.
All right, Larry, let's move over now to TCR. And let's start off with Brandon Whitworth, driver of the number 42 D2D E-Racing Honda Civic Type R, finishing second tonight.
All right, Brandon Whitworth is joining us. And Brandon, quite a bit of a come from behind tonight. You kind of started a little bit further back, kind of snuck up on the front of the field, but it came down to you and Andre. Walk me through how that race closed out for you.
Well, the Honda's a pretty good long-run car, so I was hoping at the end of the race we might have a little something extra. But I caught up to Andre, and going down those long straights, I don't know if a Honda's got more drag or what, but we don't get much draft advantage. So the only section I was faster than him probably was back there in the madness, right? So going up and down the hills back there, I seemed to be a little bit faster, but it never was quite enough to get by. And I knew I was going to have to wait for like the next to last lap or the last lap before I could make a move, because he would just pass me again on the straights.
Yeah, as we watched that kind of wind down, we thought perhaps as you guys had cleared some traffic that maybe Andre would start pulling away, and it didn't really happen that way. Like you already said, perhaps the Honda is a good long run car. You guys really started closing that gap up. Is that something you guys planned for as a setup to kind of preserve tires and make the car work in that last 15 minutes, or is it just how this Honda seems to be?
I would like to tell you that we do that on purpose, but it just seems to be that way. Because I definitely was not taking it easy on the car in the race.
Yeah, well, your pace was solid there. You had to overcome a couple other guys around you. You had a good little chase down of Austin Knight. I think as you guys were coming up to the pit stops there, were you kind of using him at that point as a gauge to try and make your way towards the front too? Or are you just trying to turn laps and hopefully get through the pit stop at that point?
Yeah, when I was following Austin, initially I was just kind of waiting for him to get it together so he could maybe chase the leaders, because I didn't want to fight it out, because if we were going to be faster together, it was much better for us to just run and chase down the leaders, which eventually did happen.
Yeah, for sure. After the pit stops, you quickly started gaining right back up on them, and were able to push your way right up to Andre, right up to that bumper. and just not quite passed it tonight. It's a tough place to pass, and certainly a car that's not drafting that well. It's going to make that even more of a challenge. But a good podium finish for you tonight. That you're going to be happy when you take a look at the point standings. When you get back home, you're still in that lead. So take a look at that, and yeah, definitely in a good position as we approach the last couple of races here this season. Anybody want to give a thanks to you for your podium finish tonight?
Well, we always got to thank the sponsors, PFETG and Ricmotech, and the admins for putting together this series. You know, it's a lot of work. And of course, my family let me do this. I gotta give a shout out to them.
Absolutely, yeah. You definitely need their support, or none of this happens. So, congrats on the podium, Brandon, and we'll see how this one plays out next time through.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, there you go. Brandon Whitworth from D2D eRacing, your current points leader in TCR. And so, Larry, closing things up and getting within now, I believe, only 3 points of our championship leader is tonight's winner, Andre Saunders from Mohawk Racing.
Like, how many obstacles?
All right, Andre. So a big victory here tonight, but that was not without a lot of drama and a lot of pressure. Tell me a little bit about your night.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Basically, I went to practice. I did practice. I'm pretty comfortable with the track. All practices, everything was looking good. And yeah, I just tried my best today. In the first lap, I kind of messed up, concentrating on too many other things and driving, and took a little bit too much of the curb. Same thing I did in practice, and got a slowdown. And then after I got the slowdown, I'm just like, you know what? You're okay. You know how to get back to the front. So that's what I did. I put my head down and went back to the front.
Yeah, we had seen that. It looked like as you kind of came through one and head to the keyhole, you started backing off a little bit. And at that point, Kevin Carlisle who was running with you, was able to get on by you, but so did Austin Knight. And you find yourself having to get by both of them as the race went on. Were you kind of kicking yourself at that point for making that mistake that it sounds like you've done before? Or it sounds like you may have had some confidence to get back up, but what was going through your head at that moment?
Basically, when I took too much curb, I said to myself, okay, you know what? Yeah, this is not good, but guess what? I know what I did in practice. I know what I'm capable of. So basically, I remembered last week when Austin said boo, and I didn't want to get boo anymore. So I put my head down and did what I needed to do.
We did a great job of getting by Austin, but then you get caught up to Kevin Carlisle, and the two of you guys were nose to tail all the way into the pits. Were you at all considering maybe an undercut, kind of coming in early, or what was your thought there? As it looked like you might have been faster than Kevin at that point, but staying behind him.
Well, this is the thing. If I forced the pass, we would have crashed. I think Kevin could have been like, you know what, Andre is faster, because we had the field by 5 seconds, and he made them come back to us because me fighting with him, basically, if he had made me pass or just give me some room, I think the both of us could have went away from the field. So because of that, I had to work even harder because, it's like everybody's coming. I'm like, oh boy, here comes Austin. I'm like, you know what, Andre, don't worry about it. Just tuck in. You know what the tires are gonna do. And that's what I did, man. I can't ask for no more. I mean, I got great support people behind me back in the scenes, just, um, yeah. So,
Yeah. How much tires left when you've got Brandon Whitworth there in the last stage of the race, and he's looking for every possible opportunity? How much tires did you have left under that car?
I had around 72%. The tires were
That's
good.
okay.
I ran an hour and 45 minutes in practice. So I know what the tires are gonna do. I just had to concentrate on my fuel and just not overburn in the car. That's what I did.
Yeah, well, you executed very well tonight. Came home with victory, and your point
Finally.
standings are updated. You're gaining. You're still a couple points down. Looks like it's about a 3-point gap.
I
Brandon
finally
now
get a
still in
win,
the
man.
lead.
I finally get a win. But hey, props to all the guys. I think this series is getting really good. I wish some more people would come in, look at a guy like me that, have taken a lot of coaching from Eric. Eric has been, you know, he's been the leader of this class, letting everybody, saying, "Hey guys, come run this class." And he taught me a lot. And I'm here because of him. So I can't take it away from him. He's good.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've made a bit of a name for yourself. There is no longer who in this race. Is you're able to take that victory tonight. Anybody else who want to give any special shout out and thanks to?
Just everybody, man. You guys for doing the broadcast. Sorry Ryan wasn't here. I think Kevin did a pretty good job. I think he raced Marshall or something. Ricmotech for putting on a series. My buddy Omar in the background. Oscar. My mom, my family, man. Just everybody. They know how hard I've been working for this win, and it finally came to me. And I hope I can repeat it.
Well, awesome. Congratulations, Andre, and on a well-deserved victory here tonight. Well earned, and it was a tough matchup, but you pulled it off. Great win for you in TCR tonight. Congrats, Andre.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
All right, there you go. Andre Saunders, driver of the number 72 Mohawk Racing Hyundai Elantra, and as he said, very first win in the Ricmotech Sports Car Series. Great to see that. He is probably the most humble racer I think I've ever met. At least, well, I mean, besides me,
there aren't many that are humble, and it's great to see it's great to watch his growth through this series over the last season or two. So very cool, well deserved. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and he is closing in on that championship lead, only I believe 3 points off of Brandon Whitworth now. So let's move over now to that amazing battle for the win tonight and for the overall win. Let's talk to Cameron Martineau, driver of the number 438 STE Racing entry. He finishes second tonight in GT4 Pro.
All right, Cameron Martineau has joined us. Cameron, you started this race on the front row. You finished in the top two, but this is a whole lot of racing in between. Tell me a little bit about your night.
Yeah, Larry. I mean, that was a fun race. I was just talking with Travis about it. We're both sitting here sweating. That was completely exhilarating. I mean, off the start, I got a good start and put myself in P1, but honestly, that was not the place that I wanted to be. And you guys saw it. We had a train of 3-4 cars.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting there for that first half of the race, just thinking to myself that, man, like, these guys are going to get me in the pit stop. I can't break away from them. My only hope of, not getting jumped in the pit stop was to try to break away from them, which, really didn't happen. So, that first half of the race was just trying to, manage the gap, see if I can, save my tires and just, try to run away as much as I can, which, once Rob spun, it was, trying to go, 110% at that point, but ultimately they caught back up. So when Tony made the pass on me during that exchange with TCR traffic, I really had no idea where the TCR was going, didn't realize it was going in the pits. But when he nipped up the inside of me, I was kind of glad and relieved because, that gave me a little bit of an opportunity to start fuel saving and making up some of that deficit that I thought I had. And then, really just trying to execute a clean pit stop. And I don't know about you guys. It must have been fun to watch, but that was a lot of fun, battling with Travis. Him and I used to be, teammates. We have a lot of respect for each other. And, I was just really trying to probe some weaknesses, see where I could, where I was faster than him and, see if I could get an opportunity. But ultimately, he just drove a great race. So
yeah, we definitely had it on there for you guys quite a bit, and I tell you, it did look like you were throwing everything in the book at him to try and make a pass. I tell you what, he's super good at getting an exit off of that keyhole down that back straight. That always is the key to success around Mid Ohio, isn't it?
It is, and I kind of found out that he was running a bit of a different setup than me that allowed him to gap me, going into China Beach. So because I was just sitting there thinking like I know I'm better on the brakes than him through there, and I was just hoping that I could get close enough to really just have an opportunity, but it never came. So hats off to him. Well done. Great drive, and I'm just I'm happy with a P2 because that keeps me in contention and gives me a good buffer in the championship.
Well, I'll give away the punchline here. Not only in contention, you are a few points up on the competitors there. You're now in the lead in GT4 Pro in the points, as Mike Dam wasn't here, and you're able to capitalize by getting that top two. So congrats on that, and congrats on the podium finish. And boy, this is going to be an exciting run down to the last races of the season. So Cameron, congrats tonight on the podium and the strong finish. We'll see you next time out.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, there you go. Cameron Martineau, driver of the ST Racing Esport BMW, coming in second tonight in GT4 Pro. And so let's now move over to our winner this evening, driver the number 16 Orion Racing BMW M4 GT4, Travis Schwenke.
Travis Schwenke, and what a great race. Travis started up there on the second row, able to be in that fight with Cameron and with Tony, and ultimately able to come out on top of all this. Tell me a little bit about your race.
Yeah, the start was interesting. I was trying to tell Rob I don't know if the inside there on the backstretch is really an advantage, and he ended up not clicking his paddle hard enough, so we got a little balked at the start, and then we fell in. We're just like, well, let's just save tires and try to be smooth, and stay here, and it worked great, for the first part for sure. And then when Rob unfortunately spun, I had to push a little hard, to try to catch back up and make sure I was right there. It seemed, some reason I have a fun thing with being behind Tony that I get lulled into just being relaxed, and Tony can turn it on in a drop of a hat, and I'm like, I wasn't ready for it, so I had to push pretty hard for a few laps to make sure I stayed right there. But overall, yeah, I was just trying to save tire and then make sure I got a good pit stop, and then try to come out and manage. We only changed tires on one side, so kind of manage those first couple laps because the car drives a little bit weird on those first two laps. But other than that, then it was just try to hit apexes again and stay in front.
Yeah, well, you're able to stay in front of Cameron as the two of you were essentially locked nose to tail for the last third of that race. A couple of times he looked like maybe, just maybe, he was going to get on by you, but you seem to have a secret to that keyhole and getting an exit. Are you going to share that with us one of these days?
It might be just lots of real race laps there. The way that camber falls off there, you can kind of use it to your advantage as long as I told Cameron that's where you have to get the car to rotate, right where the peak of that hill is. And as long as you get it rotated there and can get on power pretty quickly from that, that's my key, at least, to getting out of that corner. There's other people who do it really well. Obviously John Allen and Rob actually gets out of there very well. So it is a little tricky corner, but it's a lot of fun too. It's a lot of fun in this car, a lot of fun in front wheel drive cars.
Yeah, that, and as well as your pass in through Madness was pretty impressive to be on the difficult side, but hold it through 5 and finally make that pass there. At what point are you just happy that it's Cameron you're alongside? Because I'm sure you guys have got some trust between yourselves.
Yeah. For being former teammates, we've raced a lot side by side, practiced a lot side by side, so definitely had confidence. He wasn't going to do anything stupid, and I know he's going to give me room, and I'm going to give him room. So, it was definitely good fun. I definitely expected him to try to send it a couple times. As we're running nose to tail there, my right sides were going off pretty bad near the end, and you had to be pretty spot on for the entry to turn 1, or else it just would not get to the apex. So that was making it a little tricky there near probably the last 4 or 5 laps.
Well, you're able to hold them off. 75 minutes is a long time to be going around here in a GT4, but you got it to work, and you got the victory, a well-deserved and well-needed victory, considering how your season had gone to this point. So congrats on that. Anybody want to give a special thanks to tonight?
Definitely thank Orion and Sim Race Cockpit, and once again, Extreme for the league. It's always so much fun running this league with people you can trust and fast people, right? Everyone's, you see people like Chris Thorman who've gotten so much better, and I appreciate that in the league.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of the best leagues around, and tonight you were on top of everybody and getting that big victory. So congrats, Travis, and let's see how this plays out in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, there you go. Travis Schwenke, your winner tonight in GT4 Pro, driving for Orion Racing. And so, Larry, why don't we wrap things up as we're running a little bit short on time here, and we'll take a look at some of the upcoming races across all of our 3 different Ricmotech series. And of course, if you want to find out more about the Ricmotech series, you can go to xmsracing.com/road. Next Monday night, July 25th. It looks like I'm going to be spending my 3rd night in a row at Summit Point Raceway, 2 in real life and 1 in the virtual world. We're going to have the Classic Sprint Series, our Mazda MX-5 racers. They are going to be running for 60 minutes. It's round number 8 from Summit Point Motorsports Park. Then in 2 weeks, August 1st, the Sportscar Series returns. We are going to be heading down south of down to the south of the equator to Interlagos to Brazil. Our GT4 and TCR racers will take up round number 6 of 7, and then finally August 22nd. We can't tell you where yet, but season number 5 of the Ricmotech World Challenge gets underway. Those are LMP2 and GT3 cars. You don't want to miss that. And of course, if you want to sign up for that series, I believe registrations are still open. Again, you can go to XMS Racing /road. So for Larry McLeod, for Jonathan Grabowski, and for Dennis Branch, I'm Greg Ginsburg. We'll see you next week from Summit Point. Have a great week, everybody.
Ricmotech, high-performance sim racing equipment. There's only one place to go, ricmotech.com.